Well, Credit Suisse is a systemically relevant bank, not only in Switzerland, but of course in Europe and globally. So there are other regulators involved, counterparty risks. And what the policymakers in Switzerland here, the Swiss National Bank, has done was absolutely necessary. I think it's also timely. It's buying time, but it's addressing the liquidity issue and it's trying to restore some confidence here. But you know, we have to step back and look, of course, at the viability of the business model, at the overall regulatory landscape. And you know, I think the leadership of the bank has really to use now this lifeline to review their plan, because obviously the capital markets have not bought the plan, as we have seen by the performances of the equity price and the credit default swaps very recently.
Let me interrogate that a little further here. So given that this has come on the back of SVB Bank and general concerns about where credit risk lies in the global banking system at the moment, to what extent is this about Credit Suisse, and to what extent is it about actually the shortage of liquidity we're now seeing as central banks have ratcheted up interest rates?
Well, the tide goes back, obviously, and the weakest links are cracking. And that's just happening, and that was entirely predictable, and this will not be the last one. So now it's really time for policymakers to restore confidence and liquidity in the system, be it in the US, be it in Switzerland, be it somewhere else. And of course, the central banks, the Fed and the ECB, have the additional task here to deal with unsustainably high inflation. So it will be very interesting to see what the ECB and the Fed are up to right now about interest rate hikes.
Can there be a plan B business model for Credit Suisse? I mean, ultimately, this second restructuring program was about further de-risking the bank in management's own mind by reducing risk-weighted assets, by spinning out the investment banking business, by ultimately concentrating on what was supposed to be very calm, very stable, very reassuring asset and wealth management operations. What do they do next?
Well, the challenge for any big bank leadership is to understand properly the interaction between the real economy and the banking system in terms of capital allocation, the utility function, as we say. And then, of course, very important in this environment, the transmission between the bank business model, the bank strategy, and the capital markets and how they perceive it. Now, it's unfortunate, of course, that the capital market, since the announcement of that plan, has never bought the plan. I mean, if you look at the share price and at the credit default swaps, then it's obvious that there is a loss of confidence and credibility. And I think right now what the policymakers have done is absolutely correct. There is no doubt that the SNB will do whatever it takes, but management has to take the time to either adapt their turnaround plan in a more radical way. I mean, for example, isolating out the Swiss bank, which is a very valuable franchise, and deal more decisively with the legacy of the investment bank.
Yeah, and that is very important here in Zurich, because I think the shareholders, the community here, have been horrified by what they've seen unfolding in Credit Suisse over the last decade or so, and they've been wanting the rot to stop. And yet here we are again in a very important moment for this organisation. Just talk to us a little bit about the potential political fallout and the domestic pressure that the management team will be under.
Well, I think the management team will very fast have to adapt the plan, and that might involve a corporate financial transaction. The political landscape is really loaded at this stage because we have national elections this fall, and the central bank has also been under political pressure due to the losses. So I think there is no choice. The policymakers are stepping up. They will do whatever it takes, but there will be political backlash and discussions about the way forward for the business model of Credit Suisse.